All right, so today we have a clip here of Tim Pool explaining why there was a recent mass shooting and just why mass shootings happen in general. Here it is.
We have this from NBC News. What we know about the slain Texas Mall massacre suspect, Mauricio Garcia. Garcia, had a tactical vest, was armed with a rifle and a handgun. A senior law enforcement official said. Authorities said he was a suspected neo-Nazi sympathizer. Now, this story it's a tragedy. It's unfortunate. And we have, unfortunately, too many of these stories that end up happening in the media. I'm sorry, that end up happening and then end up hitting the media. So, I mean, the first thing I just want to say before we get into any of the politics from either side is, we don't want these things to happen.
Yeah.
We want these things to stop. We need to figure out what the issue is in our society, in our culture. I genuinely believe.
So Tim Pool says, we, and I don't know what he means by we. I'm assuming he's talking about Americans, but I do know there's one group of people, especially when it comes to the politics of it all, that don't want these things to stop. He says that we need to figure out what the problem is. What's the problem? Why there are so many shootings? But I I happen to know what the problem might be. The problem, and this isn't hard to figure out, it might be hard for Tim Pool, is guns. Believe it or not, the problem is guns. According to Harvard, and this is research from 2004 that researchers and analysts have said is even way more true and way more evident today, they said that guns literally lead, if there are guns, that leads to more homicide. Across high-income nations, more guns equals more homicide. We analyzed the relationship between homicide and gun availability using data from 26 developed countries from the early 1990s. We found that across developed countries where guns are more available, there are more homicides. These results often hold even when the United States is excluded. So even when they're leaving out the U.S., other developed nations, they're literally saying, every developed nation, any place in the world where there are guns, there is going to be violence. It's a scientific fact. And as for do guns make us safer, again, according to David Hemingway, who is a professor of health policy at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, he literally said that evidence that having a gun may reduce property loss is, there's not really evidence to support that claim, but he said that the evidence that is there is equally compelling that having another weapon, such as mace or a baseball bat, will also reduce the likelihood of property loss. So you don't even need a gun, and if you're worried about, something like self-defense, it literally says that other forms of self-defense, like mace, baseball bat, anything, a stick, a nightstick, will work. But also, and this is just, something, just a little side note, there are more guns in this country than there are people. There are literally over 400 million firearms in this country. There's not even close to 400 million people here. And in 2021, where we have the most recent gun death statistics, 2021 was the highest year on record for gun deaths in America. It also just happened to be the year that there are more guns in the country than there ever have been before. So if we look at the science and the facts, that tells us what the problem is exactly. It is guns. And you want to know what, or do you guys want to know who doesn't want to see these tragedies stop, quote unquote, according to Tim Pool? The Republicans. Because you want to know why? Republicans have routinely, repeatedly, time and time again voted against gun safety legislation. And here's a list of 34 Republican senators who voted against the bill. Now, you're probably sitting there not surprised, but the reason that these people are voting against gun safety bills are because they take gun lobbyist money. They take NRA money. They love that sweet, sweet NRA money. But let's just pick out some random names. John Boozman right here. Let's see if he's on the list. Oh, there he is. John Boozman on the list. $82,000 in gun lobbyist money spending that went toward him, and he also just happened to vote, against gun safety bill. Tom Cotton. Let's see Tom Cotton. I'm sure that he's probably not on the list. Oh, wait. There's Tom Cotton on the list. $1.9 million in gun lobbyist money to Tom Cotton. Again, he also just happened to vote against gun safety bill. Let's see. Let's do Ron Johnson. He's a favorite, right? Ron Johnson. Oh, you want to know what? Ron Johnson's not on the list. How about we do Rand Paul? I heard Rand Paul's on the list too. Look at that. almost every single one of these senators, Josh Hawley, almost every single one of these senators is on this list. And you want to know what? They are all Republicans. They're all Republicans. And what else do Republicans love to say? You guys know what they love to say? They say, well, it's a mental health crisis. It's a mental health crisis, and we need to address the mental health problem in this country. But Republicans also voted against school-based mental health services. This is a screenshot from back in September of a House vote, and you can see right here, Democratic, 2019, yes. Republican, 205 no's. So we know for a fact that it's the guns. We know it's guns. And the Republicans like to say that it's a mental health crisis, but they're also the ones that are voting against supporting mental health. So it doesn't matter how you look at it. We know what the problem is. It's Tim Pool. It's people like Republicans like Tim Pool, and it's the guns. It's the guns. It's the people that repeatedly vote against gun safety legislation, gun control in this country, because, again, all of the science points toward gun control being the answer for less tragedies like this happening. But Tim Pool's got a different perspective on it, guys.
It's disassociation. It is a dejected society where individuals don't know or care about each other, and they seek validation or they seek to push some extremist ideology.
Yeah, Tim Pool is sitting here talking about other people pushing an extremist ideology, guys. This is real.
And then this whole thing creates a recipe for disaster. I'll put it simply, I think it's multiculturalism. And not the idea that people of all different types are holding hands on the rainbow. It's that you have different communities stacked on top of each other and next to each other with wildly different views, and they don't like each other.
Yeah. So what Tim Pool is pretty much saying there is, it has to do about race. He's saying it's multiculturalism, which is one of the most broadly defined, generalized, blanket terms you can use for anything at any time. Multiculturalism can mean so many different things. He doesn't explain what he means. He just says there are communities stacked on top of each other that think differently, drastically differently, and they don't like each other. I mean, I don't want to sit there. I don't want to sit here and assume he's talking about race and it all boils down to, like white people and black people. That's just kind of what it sounds like, because he's sitting here saying, I'll be honest with you, it's multiculturalism. What does that mean? What does that mean, Tim Pool? Because he doesn't explain it. Again, he doesn't show you any of the gun statistic data that I just showed you. He's never going to talk about that stuff. None of them are. They will never bring this up on their shows. But somehow it's multiculturalism. It's different communities being so close together and thinking so drastically differently. That's why mass shootings happen.
And then people who are crazy will do crazy things. But what ends up happening today, we have this story from the Daily Mail. Revealed Texas gunman staked out massacre mall to monitor peak times 3 weeks before killing 8, and posted details on Russian social media alongside photos of Nazis, guns, and ammunition.
And again, remember what we saw from Harvard. We remember what we saw those researchers saying. The presence of a firearm creates violence. It is a fact. You can't argue against it. You can sit there and ignore the facts and be a fucking idiot like Tim Pool and sit here and go down this wacko quasi bullshit rabbit hole of it's multiculturalism. Like I don't even think he knows if he had got asked to define that, if he could even define it in the most general terms. But it's all this other stuff. It's definitely not the guns, though. It's definitely not the guns.
You see, here's where we get into the psyop. No one knows if this Russian social media profile it actually belongs to this guy.
And I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to be completely honest, and some of you might disagree with me on this. And I even saw Jank of the Young Turks say this on his Twitter, and you guys know how I feel about his Twitter. I routinely disagree with takes I see from him on Twitter, but he said it, and I was like, I 100% agree with this. Right now, I'm at the point where, this guy, he had Nazi tattoos on him. He was probably a white supremacist. That's a problem. I have a problem with white supremacists. I have a huge fucking problem with people that are racist. And you guys see me call out racist here. But Tim Pool is sitting here focusing on the wrong thing. Some of the media is focusing on the wrong stuff. I don't care if he was a white supremacist. That is part of the problem. But we need to address the gun problem. It's guns. At the end of the day, there is one thing, one common denominator across the board for all of these tragedies. And I don't know how to stress this enough. I don't know how many times I am going to say it the rest of the time I am alive, but god damn it, it is the firearms. It is guns. All of the science, all of the research, all of the facts, all of the whatever you want to call it points toward it being firearms. And these people want to focus on the wrong things. They are so focused on the wrong shit. And Tim Pool wants to sit there and say something like, it's multiculturalism.
A Bellingcat researcher named Eric Toller just said, I found this profile that looks like it's his. In fact, I'm pretty sure he even said, I didn't verify it, I don't know.
And again, regardless, this is still Tim Pool's fight against, him thinking that there's no such thing as white supremacists and white supremacy isn't real. There's no racism in America. I don't see racism in America. That type of shit.
Now, the photos that are coming out, I don't want to show many of them considering the sensitive nature of these things. They don't show his face. And Ian Miles Chong actually found that most of these photos are from 5 years ago on a random subreddit that were making fun of these people.
I can't comment on any of the pictures that he was talking about there because I just don't know enough about them. But one thing I do know is that Ian Miles Chong is definitely not a trustworthy source in any capacity, and he never will be. But that's going to be it for the video, guys. Let me know what you thought of Tim Pool and Tim Pool's take on guns and why there are so many mass shootings. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, press that little bell, turn on all notifications so you guys don't miss an upload.